We are on the record for hearings in the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for July 27, 2022. I'm Stephen Nelson, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9 a.m. On the docket, the following matters will be continued or dismissed. Case number 29453 is continued to August. Case number 29403 is continued to August. Case number 29404 is continued to August. On page 3, case number 29461 is continued to August. Case number 29462 is continued to August. Page 4, case number 29046 is dismissed. Case number 29230 is continued to August. Case number 29405 is continued to August. And case number 29344 will be dismissed. The administrative docket starts on page 5 with case number 29465 and goes through case number 29481. These cases will be heard in the next room with Michael Zisch. Audio recordings of the cases on the administrative docket will be placed on the oil and gas website by the end of the week. If you wish to appear in one of the matters on the administrative docket, please appear in the next room. If there is opposition to the matter, it will be brought back into this hearing room to be heard, and your statements and evidence will be taken. We will begin with case number 29453 in the matter of the petition of Empire North Dakota LLC for an order of the Commission providing for the amendment of the plan of unitization for the Starbuck Madison unit, Bottineau County, ND, and for such other and further relief as the Commission deems appropriate. This case is continued to August. Case number 29403, application of Empire North Dakota LLC for an order establishing 4 160-acre drilling units consisting of the northeast quarter, the northwest quarter, the southeast quarter, and the southwest quarter of Section 17, Township 161 North, Range 78 West, Bottineau County, ND, and allowing a vertical well to be completed in the Spearfish Formation at any location not closer than 500 feet to the boundary of each such unit, and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to August. Case number 29404, application of Empire North Dakota LLC for an order establishing 1 160-acre drilling unit consisting of the southeast quarter of Section 19, Township 161 North, Range 78 West, Bottineau County, ND, and allowing a vertical well to be completed in the Spearfish Formation at any location not closer than 500 feet to the boundary of such unit, and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to August. Case number 29454, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Bone Trail and or Tyrone Bakken pools to establish an overlapping 3840-acre spacing unit described as sections 1, 2, 11, 12, 13, and 14, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Oasis Petroleum North America, LLC. And, Mr. Examiner, if I may, case number 29454 through 29459, there's 6 Oasis spacing cases, and they're all sort of interrelated, what we've got. 29456 and 29459, those are both proposed 1,920-acre spacing units that are stacked on top of each other. And then the remaining 4 cases are each for 3,840-acre spacing units to allow for lease line wells or section line wells on either side of each of those proposed 1920s. So I guess it would be my suggestion and or request that we consolidate each of these cases for purposes of hearing. And I guess it probably also makes sense if Mr. Examiner and staff agree that we could kind of take them out of order. So 29456, the first 1920, we could kind of go through that, and then 29459, the next 1920 to the south, go through that, and then go through each of the 3840s.
Okay. Is there any objection from Commission staff for combining these cases for the purposes of hearing? Seeing none, it's approved. We will go ahead and do
And then, Mr. Examiner, I guess one more thing on that, and it might make sense if we just have like the land witness go through her land exhibits on each of the cases, and then If that's okay, otherwise we can go one by one too. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, let's just go one witness at a time and then have them go through the cases.
Through each of the cases, and then, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So I will go ahead and read those cases into the hearing here. Let's go to the next one. Case number 29455. That is application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Bowen Trail Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 3840 acre spacing unit described as sections 2, 3, 10, 11, 14, and 15, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Case number 29456, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Bowen Trail Bakken Pool to establish a stand-up 1920 acre spacing unit described as sections 2, 11, and 14, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 4 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit, granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Case number 29457, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Bowen Trail Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 3840 acre spacing unit described as sections 22, 23, 26, 27, 34, and 35, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Case number 29458, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Bowen Trail and or Tyrone Bakken pools to establish an overlapping 3840 acre spacing unit described as sections 23, 24, 25, 26, 35, and 36, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. And case number 29459, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Bowen Trail Bakken Pool to establish a stand-up 1920 acre spacing unit described as sections 23, 26, and 35, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 4 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. These cases are all consolidated for purposes of hearing, and I will turn it over to you.
And Mr. Examiner, I'll have 3 witnesses testifying in each of these cases. It will be Nicole Meredith as to land, Nathan Gableman, Geology, and Cole Carruthers on engineering. And they should all be on the line right now.
All right. Ms. Meredith, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Nicole, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and what capacity, and give us your business address?
Nicole Meredith, layman at Oasis Petroleum. Address is 1001 Fannin, Suite 1500, Houston, Texas 77002.
And Nicole, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And are you familiar with the each of the proposed spacing units for these cases and the land issues associated with them?
Yes, I am.
And have you prepared some land exhibits for the hearings?
That's correct.
I'd move the testimony of Ms. Meredith be received as that of an expert in these cases.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Nicole, I'm not sure if you heard, but I think if we can start with case 29456, and that's the first 1920 consisting of 211 and 14. Can you take us through the land exhibits for that case, beginning with L1? Can you identify the proposed spacing unit?
Sure. Of course, so L1 is our regional land locator map depicting our 1,920 acre spacing unit of 2, 11, and 14, located in Township 156, Range 102.
Okay. Then let's move on to L2. Can you take us through your working interest in that 1920?
Yes, so this provides the working interest for the requested 1920 acre spacing unit. 156, 102, sections 2, 11, and 14. Our working interest currently is at 39.83%.
And then let's move on to L3. If you can take us through the breakdown of the working interest of the lands making up that 1920.
Sure. So we've got on the map depicted as Unit A is our Township 156-102, Sections 2 and 11. We have a 44.17% working interest. And the unit as depicted as B is Sections 14 and 23, just south of that, with a 31.16% working interest.
And Nicole, are 2 and 11 and 14 and 23, are those both Oasis operating spacing units currently?
That is correct.
Okay. Let's go ahead then and move on to, it's case 29459, and that is the other proposed 1920 consisting of 23, 26, and 35. And if you can take us through the land exhibits in that case, beginning with L1, and identify the proposed spacing unit. Sure.
So this unit is just directly south of the unit we just spoke of. This is captured as 156-102, sections 23, 26, and 35 on Exhibit L1.
Okay. And then let's move on to the next exhibit, and if you can identify your working interest.
Yes, so the working interest in 23, 26, and 35 is a 47.78% working interest.
Okay, and then let's move on to L3, the breakdown of the makeup of that underlying units.
Okay, and similar to the previous units, Oasis does operate those units depicted as A and B. A at 14 and 23 is a 31.16% working interest, and Unit B, located in 26 and 35, is a 56.09% working interest.
Let's go ahead then and move on to the next cases, the 3840s, and let's start with case 29454. And if you can identify the proposed 3,840 acre spacing unit that we're talking about in that case.
Sure. So this is in sections 1, 2, 11, 12, and 13 and 14 for our Exhibit L1 with the regional land locator map.
Let's move on to L2, your working interest in that proposed spacing unit.
The working interest in the proposed 3840 acre spacing unit is a 66.97 on that lease line wall.
Okay. And then let's move on to L3, kind of the breakdown of that.
Okay. And similarly to the previous cases we spoke about, Oasis does operate each of the underlying units. So Unit B or Unit A depicted 2 and 11 is a 44.17% working interest. Unit B as 1 and 12 is a 92.93% working interest. Unit C in 14 and 23 is a 31.16% working interest, and Unit D in 13 and 24 is a 96.44% working interest.
And then now let's move over, I guess, the lease line well on the other side, case 29455. Can you identify the proposed 3,840 acre spacing unit we're talking about here?
Yes, so this is the western section line, and it is depicted as sections 2, 3, 10, and 11, and 14 and 15 on Exhibit L1.
Okay. And L2, if you can give us your working interest.
The working interest for that unit is a 67.58%.
Okay. And then Exhibit L3, if you can take us through that exhibit.
Okay. L3, Unit A is located in 3 and 10, and it's a 95.06% working interest. Unit B, located in 2 and 11, is a 44.17%. Unit C in 15 and 22 is a 95.84% working interest, and Unit D, located in sections 14 and 23, is a 31.16%. And again, Oasis does operate each of the underlying units shown here.
Now let's move on to the next case to the south, and case 29457. If you can identify the proposed 3,840 acre spacing unit in this case.
Yeah, sure. So this is in Exhibit L1, the regional land locator map is sections 22, 23, 26, 27, and 34 and 35 for the 3840 acre spacing unit.
Okay. And then L2, your working interest in that spacing unit.
We have a 63.98% working interest in this lease line well.
Yeah, which results hopefully not bad.
Nicole, we're picking up somebody else on the line too. I don't know if they can get muted or something.
Okay, let me see. Hang on just 1 second. Okay, sorry about that.
Yep, no problem. So I think we're on L3, just sort of the working interest of the underlying units making up that 3840.
Okay, yes, so the existing spacing unit summary exhibit or unit A is depicted as sections 15 and 22 with a 44.17% working interest. Unit B as 14 and 23 is a 31.16% working interest. Unit C is 27 and 34 with a 98.19% working interest. And Unit D is sections 26 and 35 is a 56.09% working interest. And Oasis does operate each underlying unit here as well.
Sure. Okay, and then let's move on to the last case, I guess the other lease line on the other side. And that's 29458, if you could identify the proposed 3840 in that case.
Okay, so this is the eastern section line well. We've, on the regional land locator map, we have shown here as sections 23 and 24, 25 and 26, and 35 and 36 of Township 156, 102.
Okay, and let's move on to L2, your working interest.
The working interest here is a 52.42% in this lease line well.
Okay, and then L3.
Okay, L3, Unit A is depicted as sections 14 and 23 with a 31.16% working interest. Unit B is depicted as sections 13 and 24 with a 44.17% working interest. Unit C is depicted as 26 and 35 with a 56.09% working interest. And Unit D is shown as sections 25 and 36 with a 63.49% working interest.
Okay. Mr. Examiner, I don't have any further questions, and I'd offer the land exhibits on each of these cases.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Nicole, this is Bruce Hicks. On both of the 1920s, you own less than 50% interest. Are you the highest working interest owner in those two 1920s?
That is correct.
And do you know who the next highest owner is?
In sections 14 and 23, it looks like Lime Rock has acquired interest over the years through via Abraxas, and I want to say they are the next highest working interest owner. It kind of drops off into smaller chunks after that of 6% and 8% and 10% working interest.
Okay, and that's the same in the other case in both 1920s?
It stems from sections 14 and 23, the way that it's plugged in for the underlying spacing calculations as to how we've calculated the underlying spacing. Yes, sir.
And are you working with the other working interest owners on operatorship on those 1920s?
No, we haven't currently, just given the fact that Oasis has operated these units and currently operate the units. So we can certainly touch base if there's a concern for operatorship.
Well, the concern would be that the other working interest owners could support Lime Rock or a different working interest owner than Oasis and end up over 50%. So we do request that you work with the other owners when you own less than a 50% majority in the proposed spacing unit.
Okay. So in each of the 1920s where we have a less than a 50%.
Right, we would want you to
Is
reach out.
what
to
you're
them.
suggesting, okay. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Mr. Gableman, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
You solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief.
Yes, I do.
Nathan, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, name is Nathan Gableman. I'm employed by Oasis Petroleum as a geologist, located at 1001 Fannin Street, Suite 1500, in Houston, Texas, zip code 77002.
Nathan, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And Nathan, are you familiar with the geology underlying each of these proposed spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And you've prepared some geology exhibits you're prepared to discuss today?
Yes.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Gableman be received as that of an expert in these cases.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Nathan, let's start with case 29456, the northernmost 1920. If you can take us through your structure map, G1.
Yes, G1 for case 29456 shows the proposed 1920 DSU highlighted in blue, also outlining the current type log as the Fed G1 located within the DSU. And this is on the Upper Bakken structure with a contour interval 20 feet.
Okay. Let's move on to G2, your isopac map.
Yes, G2 shows the Middle Bakken gross isopac map on a 2-foot contour interval with an average about 40-foot thickness across the 1920 DSU, which is also highlighted in the blue on that.
Okay. And then let's move on to G3, your type log, if you can summarize that exhibit for us.
Yes, G3 shows the type log that is shown on each of the maps, the Fed G1, highlighting the Middle Bakken target zone that we'll be targeting in these wells, with the gamma ray on the far left. Then on the next right track is the resistivity log. Then on the far right track is the porosity log.
Okay. And let's go ahead then, Nathan, and move on to case number 29459, and that's for the 1920 just to the south. And if you can take us through your exhibit G1 in that case.
Yes, again, G1 shows the Upper Bakken structure map on the same 20-foot contour interval with the updated DSU for this case for the 1920, highlighted on the map blue with the type log G1 just north of the proposed DSU there.
Okay. And G2?
Yes, G2 shows the Middle Bakken isopac map, again on a 2-foot contour interval with the 1920 DSU in the blue outline, showing about an average of about a 42-foot Middle Bakken fit for the DSU.
Okay. Yeah, and G3, we've got the same type log that you just discussed, is that correct?
Correct, it's the same type log as the previous case.
And there's nothing unique from a geology standpoint with respect to this southern 1920?
No, just a couple foot thicker than the
Sure.
northern one.
Okay. Let's move on then to 29454. We're moving on to the 3840s now, and G1,
G1 shows the same structure map as the previous case 29456, just with the updated 3840 proposed DSU outline in the blue.
okay. And then G2, we're looking at the same ISOPAC map.
Correct. Same ISOPAC map, just with the updated 3840 proposed DSU.
Sure. And then G3, is that the same type log?
Correct. Same type of log. Nothing materially different about it.
Okay. Let's move on then, 29455.
Yes. Again, G1 on there, just showing the updated 3840 DSU for that western section line. Nothing materially different about the structure map as in the previous.
Okay. How about the ISOPAC map G2? Anything unique with respect to this 3840?
Nope. Same as the previous case.
Okay. And the type log? Same type log?
Same type log, correct.
And then now let's move on to the, I guess, the two 3840s to the south, starting with case 29457. And exhibit G1 in that case.
Yes, again, this is pretty much the same structure map as the case 29459, just with the updated proposed 3840 DSG in blue that encompasses that western section line.
Sure. And then the ISOPAC map.
Yeah, nothing materially different from the previous cases. They had updated before.
Sure. And then again, we're looking at the same type log for each of the other cases, correct?
That's correct.
And then finally, let's move on to 29458, just the 3840 to the, on the other side. Exhibit G1 there.
This again shows the Upper Bakken structure map, just with the updated proposed 3840 DSU for that eastern section.
Okay. And how about G2 and G3, the ISOPAC map in the type log? Anything different with respect to this proposed spacing unit?
Nothing materially different, no.
I have no further questions for Mr. Gableman. I'd offer the geology exhibits in these cases.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Crothers, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Cole, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
My name is Cole Carruthers. I'm employed by Oasis Petroleum as a development engineer. Our business address is 1001 Bannon Street, Suite 1500, in Houston, Texas.
And Cole, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
I have.
And you put together some exhibits that you intend to sponsor for the hearing today?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Carruthers be received as that of an expert in these cases.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Okay. And Cole, let's go ahead on the first case that we're discussing, 29456. If you can take us through your proposed plan of development for that 1920.
Okay, starting on Exhibit E1, and here you can see the existing three 2-mile section units. We're combining those into two 3-mile units that can hold stuff. We're focusing now on the northern one, outlined in red or green.
No, yeah, go ahead and move on to E2 and just kind of give us a little bit more detail on what you're looking at for development, what the plans are.
On E2, we're looking at putting 4 new Bakken wells in this spacing, and within our typical setbacks of 500 feet east and west and 150 north and south.
Okay.
Moving on to E3, we have some more reservoir properties that they went over. A pretty thick section here at 40 feet with pretty high water saturation of 48%. Our GOR is roughly 800 MCF per stocking fill. Original oil in place, we're looking at 13.3 million, and we are estimating a single well EUR of 733,000 barrels of oil. We're going to be drilling 4 wells, so our recovery factor will be 22%. On our economics, we're running at $55 and $2.50 for gas. Our estimated lateral length is going to be 3 miles. Our investment per well is going to be $9.4 million, and that gives us a net income of $21 million and an undiscounted rate of return on investment of 2.29.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and move on to 29459, the proposed 1920 that is directly to the south. And if you can start with, I guess, E1 and identify the proposed spacing unit we're talking about.
E1, you can see our spacing unit 23, 26, and 35 outline. With the single well, they'll stack on top of each other. In that unit, on E2, we're also planning on 4 additional wells here, which will all be Bakken, and the same setbacks of 500 and 150.
And then how about E3 is if there's any distinctions or anything different with respect to reservoir here, or what the economics might look like?
But these are the same economics. Same type curve is 733,000, and then our same drilling investment cost, roughly 9.4 million for a return on investment of 2.29.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and move on then to the 3840s for the, I guess, the section line wells on either side of these. Let's start with 29454, and if you can take us through, I guess, E1, starting with E1 in that case.
Okay, on E1, we're looking at spacing the eastern side of this unit. Moving on to E2, we're looking at drilling a single well right on the section line. Typical section line setbacks of 150 and 250.
Okay. And then how about on E3, is there anything different with respect to reservoir or economics on for the lease line well?
No, the only difference here would be that recovery factor, only having 1 well, and then once we combine it to a 3840, our original oil in place for the entire 3840 goes up. But the economics are the same.
Okay. Then how about 29455? That would be, I guess, for the section line well on the other side. Can you take us through your engineering exhibits?
Okay, we're looking at the section line well on the west side of this unit. See the space in E1. In E2, we're also just planning on a single well right down the middle of the section line with our typical setbacks of 150 and 250.
Okay.
It is worth noting that well that goes diagonal, that is an SWD. So it looks like it almost intersects it.
What,
And then in E3,
hang on, Cole. What, are you talking about like in section 15?
yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
And then in E3, we're also looking at similar economics, same type curve and investment cost.
Sure. Then let's move, I guess, down to the south, case number 29457. And let's address the 3840 and the lease line wells in this case, beginning at E1.
Okay, in E1, you can see outlined, we're on the west side here. Moving on to E2, we're also planning just a single section line well with our typical setback. No change in these other than the location. And then in E3, we're looking at similar reservoir properties. We keep our type curve here the same, and we also are expecting the same investment of $9.4 million.
Okay. And finally, case 29458. You can take us through, identify the 3840 in your development on this one.
In 29458, we flip over to the eastern side. Moving on to Exhibit 2, we're also planning just a single section line well with identical setback 115, 250. And then in Exhibit 3, we also have identical type curve and investment. We get the same returns we're seeing on the rest of the well.
Okay. So, Cole, in your opinion then, if the commission were to grant each of these proposed 1920s as well as the additional 3840s to allow for those section line wells, is that going to prevent waste, prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells, and protect relative rights?
Yes, I believe it will.
Okay. I have no further questions. I'd offer the engineering exhibits as well as the gas capture plan affidavit in each of these cases.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Cole, in your case 29456 and 29459, your 1920s, what's your inner lateral distance that you're shooting for?
So you were saying what's our distance in between wells from our section line
No, what's
or from the existing wells?
between between your proposed wells and from the existing well?
So in 29456, we have those wells off to the east. They're more than 1,300 feet away, or the one going south is roughly 1,300 feet away. And then in between the wells, we'd be close to like 1,000 feet. And then we step off of our two existing wells that aren't perfectly straight, but they look like they're almost right down the center line. So we have 2,600 roughly feet in between there and our section line, so it'd be slightly tighter than 1,000 feet. So roughly, we're targeting that 1,000 to 1,300 foot spacing is our goal.
And are these wells going to be drilled from one pad, two pads?
Our goal is to drill them from the same pad, just because they stack up north-south like that. The only difficulty there is that SWD that I mentioned. Right now, it doesn't look like it has pressure, but the more we dig into that, that might push us to the north and south. But the plan right now is to drill from one pad and drill all these wells from a single pad.
Is your goal to drill the wells in both 1920s, so 8 wells from one pad?
Yes. Well, maybe 10 wells from one pad.
With the two section line wells on the west side?
Correct.
What about the section line wells on the east side? Would they be from one pad?
Well, I guess, 12 wells. Yeah, 12 wells. We can step out if you put the pad in the middle of the section 14 or section 13 there, middle as in east-west, we can step out that half mile and drill all the wells from the same pad.
Okay, thank you.
Cole, this is Bruce Hicks. If you batch drill these wells, will you do 6 at a time, or what's the plan?
more than likely we'll do 6 and then come back and drill another 6. We haven't been in this area in a while, so we at this time we're probably not going to commit to 12 wells. We will drill the entire spacing unit all at once, but more than likely, yes, it'll be 6 and then the remaining 6 coming back later.
And when you say later, do you mean back to back, or would you evaluate the first 6 wells?
We would need time to evaluate it, make sure our spacing's correct, and then come back and drill the remaining unit.
Okay. On your exhibit E3, you're indicating a gas oil ratio of 800. I assume your producing gas oil ratio will be higher than that.
Our gas to oil ratio you're talking about?
Right.
That's our IP GOR, and we predict it rising through time. So
Okay. On the gas.
it's not a schematic output that we see it.
Okay. On the gas capture plan affidavit, you don't quite capture what the commission wants on these affidavits. In the policy, it states that the affidavit must indicate that you will provide a gas production forecast to the midstream gatherer, and also that you have developed a gas capture plan. So we would want you to resubmit those, and I think you could just put all the case numbers on one and just submit it, especially since we've combined all these cases, but you need to revise that to make sure that it's capturing the correct information on it.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Mann, there was a request for a supplement there. How long do you need for that?
Yeah, I think a week would be fine on that. Just like, I don't know what that date is.
Okay, so that would be, I believe, August 3rd.
Okay.
All right, the record will remain open until August 3rd for supplement. Is there anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
Then that will conclude the hearings for the hearing for cases number 29454, 29455, 29456, 29457, 29458, and 29459. Moving on. Case number 29460. Application of SEG Williston LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Stanley Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit described as sections 1, 2, 11, and 12, Township 155 North, Range 91 West, Montreal County, North Dakota, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of SEG Williston LLC. I'll have 3 witnesses appearing telephonically in this case: Laura Hudson, David Williamson, and Jared Frank, and I will call them now. Laura? Hey, do you have everybody there? Okay, we've got you live in the hearing room.
All right, Ms. Hudson, can you hear me?
Yes,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Laura, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and what capacity, and give us your business address?
Sure. My name is Laura Hudson. I'm employed as the land manager for Stevens Production Company on behalf of SEG Williston LLC. Our address is 1780 Hughes Landing Boulevard, Suite 300, The Woodlands, Texas, 77380.
And Laura, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have not.
Okay. Why don't we briefly go through your educational background and work experience in the area of land management?
Sure. I graduated in year 2000 from Arkansas Tech University with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. I started working in oil and gas in 2001 and was an independent landman until 2012 when I joined Stevens Production Company, and I'm also a member of AAPL and a certified professional landman.
Okay. And Laura, are you familiar with the proposed spacing unit we're talking about today and the land matters associated with that spacing unit?
Yes.
Okay, and you've got some land exhibits you're prepared to discuss today?
Yes.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Ms. Hudson be received as that of an expert in this case.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Okay. And Laura, let's go ahead and start with exhibit number 1. If you can just identify the proposed spacing unit we're talking about.
Mr. Mann, would that be the
That's
land plat?
Yep, it's the land map. Yeah, correct.
Okay, the proposed spacing unit would be all of sections 2 and 11, 155 north, 91 west, and also 2 and 11 and 1 and 12.
Okay. Then let's go ahead then and move on to exhibit number 2. And exhibit number 2 is the exhibit where you've identified the working interest on the underlying lands that make up that spacing unit?
Yes. So the existing spacing unit for 2 and 11 is a 1,280 acre spacing unit currently operated by SEG Williston. The spacing unit comprised of all of section 1 is a 640 acre spacing unit operated by EOG. And the spacing unit comprised of all of section 12 is a 640 acre spacing unit operated by SEG Williston LLC.
Okay. Then let's move on then to exhibit number 3, the working interest in the proposed 2560.
Sure. So the working interest owners in this particular unit, in the full unit, is SEG Williston, 46.0%, and then EOG is the second largest at 25%.
Okay. And Laura, would it be your intention to work with the other working interest owners with respect to operatorship of the proposed well on this 2560?
Yes, and we've already been working with EOG in that capacity.
Okay. I have no further questions for Ms. Hudson. I'd offer exhibits 1 through 3.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Lauren, this is Bruce Hicks. We're looking at section 12. I currently show that's a Rampart operated well. Is SEG taking over Rampart or a number of their wells?
Yes, actually, that was just approved, I believe, the other day. A number of wells, including the ones in section 2 and 11.
Okay, and what was the effective date of the assignment?
I believe it was April 1st.
Okay, thank you.
I would have to double check that, but I believe that's the case.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, move on to Mr. Williamson. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
David, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
David Williamson. I'm employed by Stevens Production. I'm a senior geologist. The address is 1780 Hughes Landing Boulevard, Suite 300, The Woodlands, Texas, 77380.
David, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have not.
Okay. Can I have you briefly take us through your educational background and work experience in the area of geology?
Yeah, I'm graduated from Marshall University with a bachelor's degree in geology and engineering emphasis in 1999. I have roughly 20 years of experience, a little more in geology. Started with BP in 2002 up in Alaska, and I've worked for companies Intervast for 9 years, Newfield in Cana-Oventa for over 2 years, and I've been working for Stevens for about 2 years as a senior geologist.
And David, are you familiar with the geology underlying the proposed spacing unit we're discussing today?
I am.
And have you put together some geology-related exhibits you intend to discuss?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Williamson be received as that of an expert in this case.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And David, let's go ahead and start with what we've got marked as exhibit number 4. It's the structure map. Can you kind of take us through that exhibit?
Yeah, it's the unit that we're talking about highlighted in red dashed line. The well is in black dash, and then there's a structure map on here. It's at the top of the middle Bakken. It's contoured every 20 feet. It's very gentle depth. I mean, it dips off to the southwest. It's slightly more than 1 degree, like 1.12 is how I calculated it. There is a 2 stars on there labeled A to A prime for a cross section. It'll be in the next exhibit. A will be the top wall because it penetrates the full middle Bakken, the full Bakken entry fork section. A prime is the well that would be closest to the proposed well that we're discussing.
Okay. And then let's go ahead and move on to exhibit number 5, and that is the cross section you were just discussing. Can you take us through that?
Yeah, so the A to A prime, the red star is the type wall. The green star is the one that would be in the unit with the proposed well. I've got the upper, middle, lower Bakken, and I've got the upper, middle, and lower 3 forks labeled on here. The bird bear on the well on the A, the Ronstadt well at A prime does not penetrate through the full 3 forks section. Our target is labeled as A prime, as in the middle Bakken. The loss on the cross section, left track would be gamma ray with color fill. The center track would be the depth. The next track would be the porosity, which showing density porosity and neutron porosity. And the right track would be the resistivity track showing deep resistivity and shallow as well.
Okay.
The middle Bakken target is roughly 32 to 34 feet thick here.
All right. That's all the questions I have for Mr. Williamson, and I would offer exhibits 4 and 5.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none? I missed the name of your last one.
Yeah, it's Jared Frank.
Jared Frank. Mr. Frank, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jared, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, my name is Jared Frankie. I am employed by Stevens Production Company on behalf of SEG Williston LLC. Our address is 1780 Hughes Landing Boulevard, Suite 300, in the Woodlands, Texas, 77380. And as a senior reservoir engineer.
Okay. Jared, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have not.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and go through your educational background and engineering-related work experience.
I graduated from the Colorado School of Mines in 2008 with a bachelor's in petroleum engineering. I started working for Newfield Exploration. I have 14 years of experience working as a reservoir engineer and a production engineer. I've also previously worked for Encana, Oventa, and most recently for Stevens Production Company for the past year and a half.
And Jared, are you familiar with the engineering-related matters associated with this proposed spacing unit?
I am.
And you've put together some exhibits you intend to discuss for the hearing today?
Yes, I am.
I'd move the testimony Mr. Frankie be received as that of an expert in this case.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Okay. And Jared, let's start with what we've got identified as exhibit number 6, the map, and if you can take us through that and explain your proposed development plan for the spacing unit.
Yes. So Exhibit 6 shows the intended drilling path for the Greenbrier 7 HSL. I do want to just note that there was a typo on the red text boxes on this exhibit. The text box indicates it's the Greenbrier 6 HSL. It's actually the Greenbrier 7 HSL. And the bottom hole location is noted as 50 feet from Northline. It's actually 100 feet from Northline. So the plans are to start this well sometime in Q4 of this year. It will be drilled along the section line 0 feet from the east line of sections 2 and 11. The landing point is at 100 feet, 150 feet from the south line, with the TD bottom hole 100 feet from the north line,
Okay.
and targeting the middle Bakken.
Sure. Let's go ahead and move on to the next exhibit, number 7, and if you can take us through the reservoir data and the economics for the proposed well.
For the reservoir details, the well is expected to have oil EUR of around 520,000 barrels of oil. The thickness incorporates both the middle Bakken, the upper Bakken, and the lower Bakken shales. The well cost of $8.1 million is the current AFE. The expected rate of return is around 79%.
Okay. So Jared, in your opinion, would this spacing in the proposed section line well, is that going to prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions. I'd offer exhibits 6, 7, and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Jared, when you were discussing your Exhibit 7, you indicated that the thickness was the total thickness for the Bakken, upper, middle, and lower Bakken. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So did you also average like the oil saturation values and porosity values for the total section, or are those values for one member of the Bakken versus the other?
That's the average for section.
So those would be the total average values for the upper, middle, and lower Bakken across the area.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Is there anything further on this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Example, thank you.
And that will conclude the hearing in case number 29460. Moving on. Case number 29461. Application of Murex Petroleum Corp. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Stanley Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 2560-acre spacing unit described as sections 25, 26, 35, and 36, Township 155 North, Range 91 West, Montreal County, North Dakota, and authorize 2 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit, and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to August. Case number 29462. Application of Murex Petroleum Corp. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Spanish Bakken Pool to establish 2 overlapping 2560-acre spacing units described as sections 1, 2, 11, and 12, and sections 2, 3, 10, and 11, Township 154 North, Range 91 West, Montreal County, North Dakota, and authorize 2 horizontal wells to be drilled on each such unit, and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to August. Moving on, case number 29463. Application of Kraken Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Big Stone Bakken Pool to to establish 2 stand-up 1920 acre spacing units described in sections 6, 7, and 18, and sections 19, 30, and 31, Township 159 North, Range 98 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 5 horizontal wells to be drilled on each such unit, and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Kraken Operating LLC. I have 3 witnesses appearing telephonically, Alan White, Brian Lucero, and Josh Lackner, and I'll call them now. Wade Mann. Hey, Alan, you got everybody there? All right, we're ready to go.
All right, Mr. White, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Alan, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yep, my name is Alan White. I am employed by Kraken Operating as a land manager. Our business address is 9805 Katy Freeway, Suite 300, Houston, Texas 77024.
And Alan, have you previously testified before the commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And you prepared some land exhibits for the hearing today, or hearings?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. White be received as that of an expert in these cases.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
All right. Alan, let's go ahead and start with your exhibit number L1. Identify the area we're talking about.
Yes, Exhibit L1 is a regional locator map of Stone Bakken field. I have outlined the 2 potential GSUs in black in sections 6, 7, 18, and 19, 30, and 31. Moving on to Exhibit L2, it is a depiction of the proposed 1,920 acre spacing unit comprised of 6, 7, 18. In there you will see Kraken's working interest in each section, which combined equates to a 51.96% interest in the DSU.
Okay.
Moving on to
Go ahead.
L3 is the proposed 1,920 acre spacing unit comprising sections 19, 30, and 31. There as well, you will see the working interest on a per section basis, which totals 51.63% owned by Kraken.
Okay. And Alan, will you be communicating with other working interest owners in each of these proposed 1920s with respect to operatorship?
Yes, we will. We are still currently pursuing leasehold in this area, so we do expect our working interest to increase there, but we have not seen a whole lot of working interest owners that actually have existing leasehold in these potential DSUs.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. White in this case. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Lucero, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Brian, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, sir. My name is Brian Lucero. I'm employed by Kraken Oil and Gas as their geology manager. Our address is 9805 Katy Freeway, Suite 300, Houston, Texas, 77024.
And Brian, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, sir, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the geology underlying the proposed spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony, Mr. Lucero, be received as that of an expert in these cases.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Brian, why don't you go ahead and take us through your Exhibit G1, that structure map.
G1 is a structure map based on the top of the Middle Bakken Formation. It's on a 50-foot contour interval, and it shows dip generally to the south. It also shows the location of our type log.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and move on to G2 and describe that type log for us.
G2 is our type log across the Middle Bakken. It's the Thoring number 1-4.
I don't have any further questions for Mr. Lucero. I'd offer G1 and G2.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Lackner, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Josh, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
My name is Joshua Lochner. I work for Kraken Operating as a reservoir engineer, and our business address is 9805 Katy Freeway, Suite 300 in Houston, Texas, 77024.
And Josh, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have not.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and take us through your educational background and engineering-related work experience?
Of course. I graduated from Texas A&M University with a degree in petroleum engineering in 2017. From there, I worked in the field for about a year before starting my engineering roles in the Houston office here at Kraken. I worked in completions for a couple of years, and I've been working in the reservoir group now for about a year and a half.
Okay. And Josh, are you familiar with the engineering-related matters associated with each of these proposed spacing units we're going to be discussing today?
I am.
Okay, and have you prepared some exhibits that you're intending to discuss in each of the cases?
Yes.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Lochner be received as that of an expert in these cases.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Okay. And Josh, let's go ahead and start with E1. If you can just describe for us how you would intend to drill and complete the proposed wells in these 1920s.
Of course. Exhibit E1 is the wellbore schematic for case 29463. It outlines our 4 casing string methodology, consisting of the conductor casing, surface casing, intermediate casing, and finally a production liner in the horizontal lateral. Our plan is to have this liner cemented in place and completed with a plug and perf method, utilizing about 167 feet per stage for the perfs.
Okay. Then let's move on to the next exhibit, E2. If you can describe how you would propose to develop the spacing units.
Yes, E2 is our proposed development diagram. The township shown is Township 159 North and Range 98 West. There are 2 proposed DSUs, boxed in yellow in the graphic. The first one encompassing section 6, 7, and 18, and the second one encompassing sections 19, 30, and 31. Our proposed development is 5 horizontal lateral wells per DSU, which are shown in the dashed green lines, though not necessarily to scale.
Okay. And then let's move on to the reservoir data, Exhibit E3. Can you summarize that for us?
Yes, sir. Exhibit E3 is our reservoir data summary for this proposed development. The geologic properties indicate a middle Bakken thickness estimated between 40 and 50 feet in this area, and an upper Three Forks thickness estimated at between 20 and 30 feet in this area. We estimate our reserves for each well to be roughly 750,000 barrels of oil EUR, and we expect the GOR to increase during the first year and a half of production, ranging between 800 and 1,500 SCF per barrel, and then stabilizing upon conversion to rod pump around 1,000 SCF per barrel.
Okay. Let's move on to E4. Can you take us through the economics?
E4, Exhibit E4 is our economic analysis for the proposed DSU. As I mentioned in the previous exhibit, our estimated ultimate recovery for each well is roughly 750,000 barrels of oil. We estimate our investment for each well to be just over $9.8 million, and I analyzed the economic output utilizing a $70 flat oil price and a $3.50 flat gas price, which yields an IRR of 126% and an NPV of $9.8 million per well.
So Josh, in your opinion, if the 1920s are established with the development that you've discussed, is that going to protect relative rights, prevent waste, prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
I have no further questions for Mr. Lochner. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Josh, what is the target for these 10 wells?
The target zone is, sorry, go ahead. Oh. The target zone is the Middle Bakken formation for all 10 of these wells. We believe that that is the optimal development for draining both the Middle Bakken and Three Forks resources in this area.
Will you attempt, or are you planning to drill all 10 wells from a single well pad?
Our current plan is to have one well pad per DSU, so that's 2 separate well pads for this development. 2 well pads.
Okay. Do you plan to batch drill the wells?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Anything further on this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
Then that will conclude the hearing for case number 29463. Moving on. Case number 29464. Application of Kraken Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Squires and/or Hebron-Bakken pools to establish the 2 overlapping 3840-acre spacing units described as sections 5, 6, 7, 8, 17, and 18, and sections 19, 20, 29, 30, 31, and 32, Township 155 North, Range 103 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on each such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Kraken Operating LLC, and I have the same three witnesses testifying in this case.
All right. Mr. White, we'll swear you in one more time. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
And Alan, why don't you go ahead and take us through your land exhibits, beginning with the locator map.
Sure. Exhibit L1 is a regional locator map of the Hebron and Squires Bakken field. You'll see they are notated between the two colors there. I have also identified the two proposed 3840 acre spacing units in the regional locator map. If you turn to Exhibit L2, it is a plat proposing of the proposed 3,840 acre spacing unit comprising of sections 5, 6, 7, 18, 17, and 18. I have also laid out the associated working interests with each of these sections in our units. You will notice that Kraken's working interest in this proposed 3840 is 35.59%. I have reached out to both DOG and Grayson Mills. DOG operates as well in Section 6, and Grayson Mills operates the well in Section 5 and 8. I have brought them up to speed on what our plans are. Both companies are not opposing our operations here, and we will continue to work with them throughout the process to have an amicable agreement on the development of this proposed 3,840 acre spacing unit. If you flip over to Exhibit L3, it is a depiction of the other proposed spacing unit. Again, I have outlined the working interest owned by Kraken in this proposed unit, and you will see that we own 88.97%. I will also like to state that Kraken operates all of the DSUs that are comprised of this proposed overlapping spacing unit.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. White. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Are any of the existing wells or the overlap spacing units 1,920 acre spacing units, or are they all a mix of 1280s?
So we recently proposed a laydown spacing unit comprising of sections 31, 36, 35, 24, or 34, I think, in the Squires field. That is a laydown, I think 2220, if I remember correctly, because of the corrective section. But everything else in there, I believe to be a 1280 spacing and will remain 1280 spacing, as per our plans currently.
And is there a 640 on section 6, or is that also 1280?
That is a 640.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none. Mr. Lucero, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Brian, why don't you go ahead and take us through your structure map G1.
Again, G1 is a structure map based on the top of the Middle Bakken Formation. It is a 50-foot contour interval. It shows dip generally to the southeast, and it also shows the location of our type log.
Okay, and let's move on to the type log G2.
G2 is our type log for the area, the full number 35-2. It shows the Middle Bakken Formation specifically.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Lucero. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to Mr. Lochner. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yeah.
All right, Josh, Exhibit E1, can you describe for us how you would drill and complete the proposed wells?
Exhibit E1 is the wellbore schematic associated with case 29464. It outlines our 4 casing streams, the conductor, surface casing, intermediate casing, and production liner, and indicates how we plan on completing this well, which is through the cemented liner with a plug and perf completion, 167 average feet per stage.
Okay. Let's move on to E2. Describe for us how you would develop the proposed spacing units.
Exhibit E2 is our proposed development diagram. For this case, you'll notice the 2 boxes in yellow outline our 2 3840 proposed DSUs, which are located in Township 155, Range 103. The northern proposed DSU is composed of 6 sections, 5, 6, 7, 8, 18, 17, and the southern is 19, 20, 30, 29, 31, 32. Our proposed wells to be drilled are the 2 3-mile Middle Bakken wells, which are indicated with the green dashed line through the middle of both DSUs.
Okay. Let's move on to E3. Can you summarize the reservoir data for us?
Yes. Exhibit E3 indicates the reservoir data for this proposed development. The estimated Middle Bakken thickness in this area is between 30 and 40 feet, and the estimated upper Three Forks thickness is between 15 and 25 feet. We estimate the GOR for each well to increase during flowback and ESP stages, ramping between 600 and 1300 SCF per barrel, and then stabilizing at around 900 SCF per barrel upon conversion to rod pump. The EUR for each well is expected to be just over 660,000 barrels of oil, which relates to a recovery factor between 2 to 3% per well.
Okay, let's move on to E4. Can you tell us what the economics would look like?
Yes. E4 summarizes the economics of the proposed development. As mentioned in the previous exhibit, the estimated EUR is 664,000 barrels of oil. Our estimated development CapEx is just over $10.2 million per well. And after running at a price tag of $70 flat for oil and $3.50 flat for gas, we estimate an IRR of 127% and a well NPV of $7.3 million per well.
Okay. And Josh, would the 3840 spacing for these proposed section line wells protect relative rights and prevent waste?
Yes.
I have no further questions. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Josh, are you going to drill both these wells from a common pad?
Yes, that is one.
Will that be located somewhere in section 8 with infill development in that 1280?
The proposed pad location is in the direct center of the 2 proposed wells. So that's roughly southwest of 17, northwest of 20. Theoretically, it could also be
of 18, but I believe we're primarily focusing on the eastern side.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, anything further on this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
And that will conclude the hearing in case number 29464. Moving on. Case number 29046, application of Kraken Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Oliver Bakken Pool to establish a stand-up 1920-acre spacing unit described as Section 33, Township 158 North, Range 98 West, and Sections 4 and 9, Township 157 North, Range 98 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 2 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is dismissed. Case number 29230, temporary spacing to develop an oil and/or gas pool discovered by the True Oil LLC, number 31-36 Northern State Well, file number 37495, northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 36, Township 148 North, Range 102 West, McKenzie County, ND. Define the field limits and enact such special rules as may be necessary. This case is continued to August. Case number 29405, application of Oventive Production, Inc. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Sand Creek Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 3840-acre spacing unit described as Sections 15, 16, 21, 22, 27, and 28, Township 153 North, Range 96 West, McKenzie County, ND, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to August. The time is about, 10:26. Why don't we take a 10-minute break here and come back?
Okay.
And we are on the record in case number 29406, application of Oventive Production, Inc. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Sand Creek Bakken Pool to establish a stand-up 1920 acre spacing unit described in sections 16, 21, and 28, Township 153 North, Range 96 West, McKenzie County, ND, and authorize 9 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Oventive Production, Inc. And I'll have 3 witnesses, Jordan Lair, George Jennings, and Chris Wall. And they'll be testifying in each of the 2 Oventive cases.
Sorry, was your Mr. Lair, was it?
Yeah.
Mr. Lair, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yeah.
Jordan, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, and what capacity, and give us your business address?
Sure. My name is Jordan Lair. I'm employed by Oventive USA Incorporated as a senior land negotiator in the Rockies operating area. And the business address here is 4 Waterway Square Place, Suite 100, The Woodlands, Texas, 77380.
Jordan, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Correct.
Okay, and you're familiar with the land matters associated with these cases?
I am.
Okay, and you've got some land exhibits that you intend to discuss today?
That's correct.
Okay, I'd move the testimony Mr. Lair be received as that of an expert in these cases.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Jordan, let's go ahead and start with L1, if you can just identify the area we're talking about.
Yeah, L1 is the regional map. It's depicting there with the approximate location of the DSU within the Sandy Creek Pool, just north of Westburg there, Township 153 North, Range 96 West.
Okay. Let's move on to L2, if you can identify the proposed spacing unit.
Sure. Obviously, this is just a zoomed-in version of the DSU there, showing the 3 sections that are going to comprise the proposed 1920, being Section 16, Section 21, and Section 28 in Township 153 North, Range 96 West.
Okay. And let's move on to L3 and your working interest in the proposed spacing unit.
Sure. So throughout the 1960 being proposed, Oventive's working interest is 50.66%. And currently, that 1920, the underlying spacings that exist right now are 1280 being Section 21 and 28, where Oventive has 51% and is currently the operator, and a 640 DSU being Section 16, where Oventive is a 50% working interest owner and is currently operator.
Okay. And I have no further questions for Mr. Lair. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Jennings, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
George, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, my name is George Jennings. I'm employed by Oventive USA Incorporated, and I work at 4 Waterway Square Place, Suite 100, Woodlands, Texas, 77380.
George, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
Okay, and you're familiar with the geology underlying the proposed spacing units in the cases today?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Jennings be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And George, let's start with G1. Can you take us through that structure map?
Yes, so this is a structure map with 20-foot contour intervals of the proposed unit. On the west side, your structure ranges from about negative 8,150 to on the east side being about 8,050 CBD sub C. And the type log is indicated by the orange star in section 15 to the east of it.
Okay, and then let's move on to G2, that type log you referenced.
Good. So this is the federal 15-1, just to the east of the DSU. You can see the different formations that are laid out there, as well as our proposed targets in the Middle Bakken and Three Forks. On the left-hand track is a gamma ray track. The central track is a resistivity track, and the right track is for Marat.
Okay. I have no further questions that offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Your last witness, was it Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Chris, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes. I work for Aventus USA Incorporated as a senior reservoir engineer at 4 Waterway Square Place, Suite 100, The Woodlands.
And Chris, I don't think we got your full name on the record.
That's Christopher Wall.
Okay. And Chris, have you previously testified before the commission?
I have not.
Why don't you go ahead and give us your educational background and engineering-related work experience?
Yes, I have a petroleum engineering degree from the University of Texas, acquired in 2002. Since then, I've been working in the oil and gas industry, so I have roughly 20 years of experience. Previously, before coming to Aventus, I worked for Oasis Petroleum in the Bakken, and I also hold a professional engineering license from the state of Texas.
Okay. And Chris, are you familiar with the engineering-related matters related to these spacing units we're discussing today?
Yes.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Wall be received as that of an expert in these cases.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Okay. And Chris, let's go ahead and start with E1. Can you just kind of walk us through how you would intend to develop this 1920?
Yes, we intend to drill a total of 8 wells as 15K laterals in sections 16, 21, and 28. We will probably have a couple of surface locations to drill all these laterals. We are not set in stone in that.
Okay. I think in the application we initially indicated you were looking at 9 wells, but we're looking at 8 now. That's the plan for development?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and move on to E2? Can you describe for us how you would drill and complete the proposed Bakken wells in the spacing unit?
Yes, we will set a surface casing and then proceed on to drill and case the intermediate casing, roughly at 6,300 feet, and then continue to drill to TD and run a 5.5-inch production casing and cement that up to the surface casing too.
Okay. And then E3, same thing for the Three Forks wells.
Very similar in well design there. We're going to drill a surface casing and then an intermediate casing to a depth of roughly 6,300 feet, then run a 5.5-inch production casing cemented to the surface casing chute.
Okay. And then let's go ahead and move on to E4. If you could take us through the reservoir data and proposed economics for the Middle Bakken wells.
Okay. In the Middle Bakken, we have roughly a net thickness of 95 feet, porosity of 6.8%, water saturation of 25%. From there, we have roughly 30
39 million barrels of oil in place, and expect to recover about 11% of that in the entire DSU. Each individual well will in the Middle Bakken will have an IP of 1,800 barrels a day, and initially start off with a gas oil ratio of 1,500 standard cubic feet per barrel, and then raise to roughly 5,000 standard cubic feet per barrel. In terms of economics, we expect to spend about $7.7 million per well and have a return on investment of 2.7 to 1.
Okay. How about E5? What are we looking at for Three Forks Reservoir Data and economics?
Yes, in the Three Forks, we have roughly 90 feet of thickness, 7% porosity, and a 45% water saturation. Very similar to the Bakken, we expect to recover about 11% of the roughly 28 million barrels in place. And each Three Forks well will have, say, an IP of around 1,470 barrels of oil per day, starting off with a gas oil ratio of 1,500 standard cubic feet and raised to roughly 5,000 standard cubic feet per barrel. The net investment will be about $7.7 million per well and have a return on investment of 2.4.
So, Chris, in your opinion, would this spacing and the development you described protect correlative rights, prevent waste, and prevent drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
I have no further questions. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Chris, I'm going to start with asking that can you submit your exhibits E2 and E3 as digital formats, PDFs? I'm fairly certain by the time these are scanned into the well file, they'll be illegible. And then just a suggestion, sorry, what was that?
No problem, we can do that.
Okay, and then a suggestion for future submissions, you might want to change the color scheme on your production string, and the yellow disappears pretty quickly. Looking at your exhibit E1, looks like both of the existing spacing units look fairly well developed. Do you want to elaborate on the need to go in and drill additional 1920 wells across the spacing units?
Yes, we found that the older vintage wells, the completion technology used at the time does not adequately drain the unit, and so we have found it to be economic and feasible to go in and drill tighter spacing, and with modern completions, not only gain economic recovery, but also recover a higher amount of oil than the existing wellbores.
Okay. Do you intend to continue producing the existing wellbores as well, or just the new wells?
We do intend to continue to produce the existing wellbore, part of the drainage, and so we want to continue that.
Okay. And so still looking at E1, is it your intent to essentially put an alternating target? So where you've got Middle Bakken wells, you will drill the slot similarly as a Three Forks well and vice versa?
That is correct, yes.
Are you planning for a target-to-target offset as far how far laterally do you intend to be away from the existing wells?
So, yes, depending on the zone, so we like to keep roughly little like 200 feet reservoir to reservoir, and then in zone we like to keep around 400 feet, and we can't always do that. In this particular case, we're going to have a Bakken that goes right over top of another Three Forks well. So it does case by case, but this one we still believe in that particular zone, the Three Forks has not been produced very well.
Okay, so to, I guess, summarize what you just said, the intent is not necessarily to drill directly under existing wells or over existing wells, but slightly offset them in the other target.
That is correct.
Okay. Your exhibits E4 and E5, your initial rates that you're projecting for these, are those rates accounting for the depletion from the existing wells?
Yes,
Okay, so that's what you expect these to actually come on with?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, this is Bruce Hicks. Looking at your economics on E5 and E4, you're projecting over 1 million barrels per well for the Bakken and 810 for the Three Forks, correct?
No, on a per well basis, the Middle Bakken is going to be closer to 700, and then the Three Forks are going to be closer to 600. The original oil in place calculations is based on the DSU level, so that is considering the drainage from the existing lateral.
Okay, so what do you expect for the new wells to drain in the Middle Bakken? What's their projected EUR?
700,
And tell me again, Three Forks?
about 630.
Okay. And were those reduced due to the EUR that you plan to expect to produce from the original existing wells?
Yes, we do expect, so if we were to drill into a virgin DSU, we would expect to have much higher CUMs or EURs. So these are reduced effectively by what we think has been drained.
And how do you propose to frac protect the parent wells?
So we actually will be pulling the tubing in most cases here. They are rodless wells, so we'll pull the tubing and then run back in with a packer. And so we will mechanically isolate these wellbores before we frac the new wellbores.
Okay, and do you plan to run any pressure equipment downhole to monitor frac hits while you're doing this?
I don't think our plans are set in stone, but this is definitely a great opportunity for us to do so. It's in at least 4 of the laterals, but I don't know what our exact plans are yet.
And how do you plan to stimulate the new wells? Are you just going to do a regular stage, or will you, use some diverters, or what's your plan?
So it's a plug and perk method, and so right now we plan on doing roughly 1,300 pounds per foot and 1,000 gallons per foot type of completion.
Okay, and is that standard, or is that kind of scaled down from what you would typically do?
No, that is our standard design.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, I guess there was a request for those PDFs to be submitted. I guess you need to keep the record open for.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, that's something we could easily get within a week.
Yes, that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, so we'll leave the record open for 1 week to August 3rd again. Right. Is there anything further on this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
All right, then that will conclude the hearing in case number 29406. Moving on, case number 29344, application of Oventive Production, Inc. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Grinnell Bakken, Sand Creek Bakken, and/or Keene Bakken Three Forks pools to establish an overlapping 3840 acre spacing unit described as sections 2, 3, 10, 11, 14, and 15, Township 153 North, Range 96 West, Mackenzie County, ND, and authorize 2 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is dismissed. Case number 29345. Application to Ovintiv Production, Inc. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Sand Creek Bakken Pool to establish a stand-up 1920-acre space unit described as sections 3, 10, and 15, Township 153 North, Range 96 West, Mackenzie County, ND, and authorize 7 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Ovintiv Production, Inc., and I have the same 3 witnesses testifying in this case.
All right. Mr. Lair, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yeah.
And Jordan, again, starting with L1, if you can identify the area that we're looking at.
Sure. L1 is again the regional map. The star is showing the approximate location of the DSU within the Sandy Creek Pool and 153 North, 96 West.
Okay. And moving on to L2, can you identify the proposed spacing unit?
Sure. L2 is obviously a zoomed-in look at the 3 sections comprising the 1,920-acre spacing unit, those sections being 3, 10, and 15 of 153 North, 96 West.
Okay. And then L3, let's move on to the working interest.
Sure. So in the proposed 1920, Ovintiv's working interest is approximately 19.65%. And the 2 existing spacing units that are within that proposed 1920 are a 1280 spacing unit, being sections 10 and 15, where Ovintiv has 11.72% working interest, and a 640-acre spacing unit comprised of section 3, where Ovintiv has 35.6% working interest.
And Jordan, it's my understanding that Ovintiv has been in active communications with XTO, is that correct?
Correct. So there have been multiple meetings between the parties over the last month, and XTO has expressed their consent to this hearing going forward, and we're currently working out everything with them to co-develop this.
Okay. And it's my understanding, I guess the application had initially requested 7 wells for the proposed spacing unit, but is it correct that XTO is okay with this going forward with the caveat that you're now looking at 5 wells? Is that correct?
Correct. And Chris will speak to that on the engineering exhibit E1.
Okay.
But that is correct.
Okay. I have no further questions. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Jennings, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
George, can you go ahead and take us through the structure map, G1?
Sure. This is a structure map outlining the DSU, ranging from negative 7970 TBD subsea on the west to negative 7890 TBD subsea on the east. And you'll note the orange star denotes where the type log that we'll be looking at on the next exhibit is.
Okay. And let's move on to G2. Take us through that type log.
So this is the Missouri Break UT1 log. On the, you can see that the different formations are called out on this type log. On the left track, we have the gamma ray. In the central track, we have resistivity, and on the right track, we have porosity. We also denote the proposed lateral targets in the middle Bakken, as well as the Three Forks.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Jennings. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
The geology exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Wall, Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
All right, Chris, Exhibit E1, if you can just explain for us what you're looking at with respect to developing the proposed 1920.
Okay. So we are proposing to drill 5 1920 acre wells or 15K laterals, starting with one pad location somewhere in the southeast corner of section 15. We have an alternating pattern of Bakken and Three Forks wells, only on the east side of this 1920 unit.
Moving on to E2, how would you intend to drill and complete the Bakken wells?
So very similar to our last case here, we have surface spacing set and then an intermediate string to roughly 6,300 feet, and then a 5.5-inch production casing TCD cemented back to the surface pew casing. And in this case, we plan to complete the well in a plug and perf completion style with about 1,300 pounds and 1,000 gallons per foot.
Okay. Then how about E3, the Three Forks wells?
Three Forks is very similar to the Bakken, where we have a surface spacing string set and then an intermediate string set at around 6,300 feet, and then a 5.5-inch production casing cemented back to the surface spacing shoe. Completion here, again, plug and perf with roughly 1,300 pounds and 1,000 gallons per foot.
Okay, then let's move on to E4. Can you take us through the Middle Bakken Reservoir Data and Economics?
Yeah, the Middle Bakken here is roughly 95 feet thick with 6.5% porosity and 25% water saturation. The oil in place for the entire CSU, consisting of 1,920 acres, is roughly 39 million barrels, of which we expect to recover roughly 11%. For each Middle Bakken well, we expect the IC to be around 1,800 barrels a day, starting with a gas oil ratio of 1,500 standard cubic feet per barrel and raising to roughly 5,000 standard cubic feet per barrel. Each well should cost around $7.7 million and have a return on investment of 2.7 to 1.
Okay, moving on to E5, Reservoir Data and Economics for Three Forks.
In the Three Forks, we have 90 feet of pay and 8% porosity with a water saturation of 45%. We expect there to be 33 million barrels of oil in place in the 1,920 acres. Each Three Forks well will average 1,470 barrels of oil per day on the initial production, starting with a 1,500 standard cubic feet per barrel GOR and rising to roughly 5,000 standard cubic feet per barrel. Each well will cost roughly $7.7 million and have a return on investment of 3.4 to 1.
Okay. Chris, in your opinion, would the 1920 spacing with this intended development prevent waste, prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells, and protect relative rights?
Yeah.
Okay, I have no further questions that offer the engineering exhibits and gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Chris, same request on E2 and E3, if you would submit those digitally, probably.
No problem.
Looking at your exhibit E1, what is Oventive's plan for the development of the west half of section 3?
Yeah, we do plan to drill a number of 5K wells and to adequately drain that. I'm blanking on the number. It's somewhere between 4 and 5 additional wells.
So 1 mile laterals on the west half?
Yes, that's correct.
I believe it was Jordan that indicated that that you had been in contact with XTO. Is this development plan that you're proposing the development plan that XTO and Oventive have kind of tentatively agreed to at this point?
Yes, sir. This is Jordan. Yes, sir. That's correct. The 15Ks on the western side is currently the proposal that both parties are working through and are tentatively in agreement with.
Would Oventive be able to submit something to the record to that effect?
Yes, we have an email from XPO the effect of them consenting to the go-ahead on this hearing today, and we're working to formalize an agreement with them currently.
Okay. Getting back to Chris, I guess. What's your planned interwell distance, I guess, between same reservoir wells and between alternating target wells?
Okay. So between existing laterals, we're looking at anywhere from 200 to 500 feet, depending on the spacing there. And then we're looking at roughly 1,000 to 1,300 feet between same reservoir, so Bakken to Bakken, or Three Forks to Three Forks. That would be the new 15K lateral.
And then is your intent to continue producing the, I guess, the 3 existing wells on the east half of 3?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, this is Bruce Hicks. On these mono well bores that you're drilling, how many have you done in the past?
Are you asking about the 15K lateral?
Yeah.
So we have not drilled one to date in the Bakken, in the Bakken Basin, the Williston Basin. However, as a company, we have drilled 15K and longer laterals in other areas such as the Permian Basin and the Anadarko Basin.
And how about the monobores on 1280s? How many of those have you drilled?
I don't know an exact number, but we're drilling. I'm trying to think today. We're running 2 rigs right now, and every single one of those wells that we're drilling, which should be, I think we'll get down maybe 30, 35 wells this year, all of which are monobores, 10K monobores.
Have you had any issues in cementing, or have they been pretty good cement jobs?
Cementing on the 5.5-inch production casing has been perfect.
Okay, so you're getting tops of cement back into the surface casing, is that right?
That is correct, yes.
And on your exhibit E4, what is your middle Bakken EUR for the new wells you plan per well?
For these, obviously there's a range as we move to the east, but they're going to be anywhere from 750 to 810.
Okay, and then how about the Three Forks?
The Three Forks also has a range, but we believe it's going to be about 630 up to about 710.
Okay. When I was looking at your gas capture plan, I noticed that you didn't indicate that you had provided the gas capture or the gas production forecast data to the midstream gatherer. So we would want you to amend that gas capture plan. And on the previous case, it's the same. You do indicate you have a natural gas capture plan, but you also must indicate in that affidavit that you've provided the gas production forecast data to the midstream gatherer, and you failed to do that on either one, so we would want you to submit that on both cases.
Yes, sir.
And of course, you do have to do it too then.
Yeah, it's actually something that we provide our gas gatherers on a monthly basis as a forecast. So it's almost standard operating procedure, but we will make sure that we amend this and get this in.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, Mr. Mann, we have a few supplements here that we're looking at in this case. What kind of timeline do you need for that?
Yeah, I think the same,
Look at the 1
August
week.
3rd, yeah.
So we will leave the record open for supplements until August 3rd. Is there anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner.
And that will conclude the hearing in case number 29345. And that concludes the hearings for July 27th, 2022.